Here we go.
Okay, so last night you were supposed to read chapter 10, which is about communication and personal relationships. And so to start off, we should define what a personal relationship is. Wood defines a personal relationship as a voluntary commitment between irreplaceable individuals who are influenced by rules, relationship dialectics, and surrounding context. So the word irreplaceable is bolded because it's really an important word in this situation, because having individuals that have a special connection or do more than just fill in a social role really is what defines it from a social relationship to a personal relationship. Because in a social relationship you can just fill a personal role, like it could be any person, and you'll just be like answering questions or having a daily conversation about the weather or your work or like classroom stuff. But in a personal relationship you can really talk about you and your feelings, and it'll be more like there'll be a better connection between the two individuals. And what really makes a personal relationship personal is that they like make a good connection between their personalities and attitudes to be able to have a discussion rather than just filling social roles, like I said. And then the next slide. Aspects of a personal relationship include like the uniqueness of the two people as well as their commitment. So the uniqueness, the people involved in the relationship are what make the relationship personal, like I said earlier. And commitment is they have to make a decision to stick with the relationship. In a social relationship, you can just put someone else in, or it could be a one-time deal rather than an ongoing communication system. And the decision to stick with the relationship is just the aspect of commitment, but within commitment you have the passion and you have investment. So passion comes from how you feel about having this communication with another person and forming this relationship. And typically, like, the passion is going to be a good thing. And when you get into more romantic relationships, you'll have more passion rather than like a friendship or like a slight acquaintanceship, and then it can grow more and more and more as you get closer to close friends and significant others and familial relationships. And then investments are what you put into a relationship that like makes it worthwhile for you, like what you're willing to give to the other person to keep this going. So what are some examples of investments you guys can think of? Time's a really good one. If you're willing to spend time with them and to be there for them, then it's obviously showing that you care and that you're willing to make this relationship work. Anything else? So like other things that Wood discusses is like taking them out on dates or going to things together, spending money on them, buying them gifts, showing them that you care through material things as well as time, just to show that like you're willing to put this into the relationship and give them something to make them feel good. Even though you're probably not going to get anything like directly back immediately. You're not going to get your money back from going out to dinner with them or going to a movie with them. It's an investment that you're not going to get back. So you can see that like commitment has changed a lot in today's society, since today we are like moving farther and farther towards a hookup culture, quote unquote, where like sexual immorality is seen as the norm rather than commitment is seen as the norm. And according to an article from the American Psychological Association, which is a nationally respected group of expert psychologists, it explains that a substantial number of people have like a negative reaction to having a one-night stand or something that's like no commitment rather than forming a real relationship with a person or a significant other. Passion is pretty self-explanatory, like it's just a feeling, like the butterflies you get in your stomach or something like that, and it's kind of hard to explain beyond the fact that it's just a feeling. And investments are also, they may also be seen as an issue when ending relationships. So if you have a boyfriend and a girlfriend that are like dating and they put a lot of time and effort and money into the relationship, but then things start to go south, it's harder for them to let it go maybe. And like I could think of a couple examples around campus, maybe you guys can too, but I'm not gonna name any names. But it's like you can see like these things happening where they're just struggling to let go of like what they put into the relationship rather than the actual person. And then relationships have rules, which we discussed in chapter 4, which they can be constitutive or regulative rules. And these general rules just form and shape how we communicate with other individuals in our personal relationships. The constitutive relationship rules, they like how we interpret what the other person does in the relationship, while regulative rules are when and with whom to begin communication. So can you guys name like a constitutive relationship rule?
What do you mean, like how we like interact with other people?
Like how you interpret the interaction. Like what are like things that you might interpret differently from one person to another?
Well, you can be like, well, I like you categorize them as like a friend, and like how you interpret them as a friend, and then you may interpret like as someone that's like you said, a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So you might interpret them differently.
So like going on that, a hug with a friend will mean something different from
than
a
a
hug
hug
with
from
a significant other, right? And then other examples that I thought was like, the book gives the example of listening to problems can be seen as caring by some people, and by some people, distracting them from the problem can be seen as caring. So like getting their mind off of it, and just like trying to be there for them, but not necessarily like having them discuss their problems and forcing them to talk about it. And then there's also like hugs versus high fives, and like what you define as a form of affection between the two people in the relationship. And so these constitutive rules are worked out over time between the two individuals, and it's not like they're just gonna come up like that. Like it takes some time to work out what is normal and what is acceptable. And then like some more modern examples, like if you get left on read, like on Snapchat or like a text message, you're like, what does this mean? Like to some people it's like, oh, you just sent me a message and I received it and like I enjoyed it, like if it was a funny picture or something, but I'm not gonna respond because that's not how I feel like it should be done. But to some people it's like, oh, you didn't respond, you didn't like it. So it's just working these things out and figuring out how the other person works out. And so that can also be kind of like why we struggle, like if you get like that feeling like, did I do something wrong in the relationship or like the friendship and you're just trying to figure things out. It's just you and the other person trying to figure out each other's constitutive rules. And regulative rules, when it's appropriate to like criticize someone, or like the book gave the example of like with family and friends, it's okay to criticize each other in like private, but to do it in front of other people is inappropriate. Or to like interrupt someone, as a kid it's okay to interrupt someone, like another kid, but to interrupt a teacher or an elder is seen as inappropriate because that's just a regulative rule of our Western society. And so there's also the ideas like showing respect and sharing your ideas, which can differ from culture to culture. Context is an important part of personal relationships because personal relationships are systems. They're able to be affected by outside influences and situations. And the location of the members of the relationship may change their communications as they adapt to the culture, especially as the culture changes. So a big example that Wood gave was the changing of, as we start to accept homosexuality more and more, that like relationships that form in that way are become more and more acceptable as the context changes in our society. And then it also talks about how the context of how you grow up and how you're raised may affect your regulative and constitutive rules also. So like high moral families may lead to high moral regulative and constitutive rules, while families that are more easygoing may lead to more easygoing regulative and constitutive rules, and vice versa with that, so like more strict and less strict. And also the hookup culture, as I mentioned before, is another societal context that is changing and that relationships are going to adapt to as that becomes more or less acceptable, quote unquote, to the society. And then we get into relationship dialectics, which are the normal tensions that we feel in relationships. And so like even in our closest relationships with like a brother or a sister or a significant other, that we feel like we can like tell them anything or like be with them all the time, you still have these little tensions that you'll feel probably in the relationships. So the first one is autonomy versus connection. So as human beings, we want to feel separate and individual from each other, but at the same time we want to have a feeling of intimacy and closeness, which kind of fits in with the sense of security and belonging that is one of the natural needs of a human, which was part of that pyramid we discussed earlier. I can't remember the name of it though. And then, so examples from the book include like vacation. You may spend like an entire week with someone and have a great time, but like when you get back from vacation, you kind of like want to spend some time away from them, which is kind of like, we're all in choir, so we understand that. Like choir tour, you get the high stress of it, and then afterwards you're just ready to like be by yourself for a little bit and take some alone time. And then novelty and predictability is another one, where you want to have these new experiences and go on adventures and like have fun things to do with your friends and family and significant others. But at the same time, it's nice to have that predictability and that routine that you can count on with another person. And so like which is also another sense of security and safety for the person with predictability. And some examples that we can all relate to is like you want to like go out and just do something fun with your friends, like maybe go bowling or something. But at the same time, it's nice to just be able to sit and talk or like watch Netflix or something, like just relatable with another person. And then openness and closedness is the last dialectic tension. And you want to be able to share everything with the other person, be open with them, and like share your feelings. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to have privacy. And so all these tensions are there constantly, and they're normal and they're completely acceptable to have. But then we find solutions to the tension in one of four ways: neutralization, separation, segmentation, or reframing. And neutralization is finding a middle ground between the opposite ends of the dialectics. So it's like finding a way to try new things but stay predictable, to share things but keep your privacy, and to be together but feel individual. And separation is when you choose one end or the other, so you're always doing new things, you're always together, or you're always predictable, or like vice versa. I mean, you're always close, not predictable. And so you're just choosing one extreme or the other and ignoring your need for the other, which is maybe seen as unhealthy by like communication and psychologists and people like scholars like that. Segmentation is finding time to try one thing at a time and just break it up. So like you have a time when you're alone, you have a time when you're with the person, you have a time when you try new things, and you have a time when you're predictable. And it's close to neutralization where like you find a middle ground, but it's more of a time thing rather than like combining them and compromising. And then the last one is reframing, and that's just changing what your needs are expected to be to force the relationship to satisfy the needs, and that's kind of also maybe seen as unhealthy. And now we're going to talk about friendships and romantic relationships in Hannah.
So personal relationships in general, which doesn't include friendships and romantic relationships, they have like a course starting at the beginning and then going on, well, forever or ending. So a turning point is when the relationship moves towards or away from intimacy. So like if basically it's the part of no return, but it's the part like where either you decide no, we're not going to keep getting closer as friends or in a romantic relationship, or yes, they keep getting closer. But there's many stages to this, not just one point, in both friendships and romantic relationships. The stages of friendship start with role-limited interactions. And this is how most friendships begin. So an example from the book was like meeting at work or in class, and like this doesn't necessarily seem like it's a part of the stage of friendship because you're not really friends yet. It's just kind of meeting for the first time or interacting at first. The second step is friendly relations, when each person checks the other one out to see if they have enough common ground and interests for a good friendship. Can anyone think of any examples of that, like in their own life?
You can like whenever you like meet, you can like ask each other questions that are like kind of similar to like you like maybe say, oh, do you like softball? Like yeah, like oh, me too. Like kind of finding the same interests just to see if you'll get along and like to see if the friendship.
Yeah, that's really good. Another one I thought of was also like even asking, oh hey, have you like seen this movie, or do you want to go see this movie? Because then you'll know if you both like it. The next one is moving toward friendship, which is kind of self-explanatory, but this is stepping beyond social roles, like what we talked about with asking them questions about themselves, and this is actually more like scheduling activities together. So for example, like going bowling or going to the mall together. The next one is called nascent friendship, or nascent, which is increased involvement in caring. This is when social norms become less important and friends start to work out private ways of relating and get into kind of patterns. Can anyone think of like patterns that they're in with their friends?
Second Saturday
So you guys go to breakfast together every Saturday? Okay, so that's a good one. Yeah, so things, it's also with family too, you kind of think of it that way. I know like sometimes me and my friends, we like have certain things that we know that we're gonna do each time or something like that. Or even just things like going to track meets or going shopping together are examples. Stabilized friendship is when the people basically think that they are going to continue being friends and continue like the progression of their friendship. Is committed to the relationship as continuous, and they'll assume they keep seeing each other. So this is when like you've already gotten to know them basically, and you'll know that you'll keep hanging out with those patterns or things like that. And then the next step is called waning friendship. So this isn't really a step, it's just more like if this is when the friendship isn't really working out, so no one's as committed, so they're not scheduling activities as much, or they drift apart because of personal things or career things. So this doesn't always happen, but it is known as a stage because it's very susceptible to happen.
I'm actually going to go ahead and pull this to a close for today.
Okay.
So if we could give them a round of applause for today. Yay. I apologize.